Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is another edition of Fresh Red Kills. So Fresh Red Kills are the videos where I talk about the books that I've recently finished reading. My videos are not exactly reviews. They are unscripted, completely off the cuff, and really they're just me giving my thoughts. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about two things that I read. So we've got The Wager by David Grann, and we've got a Conan graphic novel. So I guess I'll start with this one here. This, of course, came out, I think, last year, maybe. And it was incredibly popular. Everybody who read it seemed to love it. So I was really looking forward to getting to this. And I read this for quarter 3 of Historathon 2024. Historathon is a year-long event where we read, discuss, and celebrate nonfiction history. And we divide the year up into 4 quarters. And quarter 3 were the last 3 months here. So July, August, and September. And we looked at the years 1500 to 1820. And if you want to participate in a Historathon, all you do is read a nonfiction history that takes place during that era, or that's about that era. So this falls into that. This was, of course, about the ship, the Wager. And it says a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder. So in the 1740s, there was a fleet of, I don't know if I'm using the correct nautical terms here, naval terms, but it is a fleet of British ships that were searching for some Spanish ships, some Spanish galleons to attack. And they went across the Atlantic and they went down around the tip of South America, around Patagonia, in search of these galleons, and they end up going through a terrible hurricane, basically, and they end up shipwrecking on an island. And this is about their tale of survival, or at least some of them surviving, some of them not surviving at all, and their divisions and their conflicts, and just the grim reality of what life is like down in that part of the world, how hostile the environment is. These guys are, from scurvy to to starvation. It's an amazing story. It really is. I understand why people were so high on it, and I gotta say, I came away also really liking it. David Grann does a really good job of laying out this story in this very kind of engaging narrative style, where you just want to keep on reading, you just want to keep on turning the page. At one point, we do kind of have our group get split into 2 different groups. So he does a really good job of kind of leaving us wanting more, a little bit of a cliffhanger, seeing how things are going to resolve. There's always some tension. There's always something that needs to be resolved throughout this. And even in the end, there just ended up being a really kind of satisfying and overall kind of bizarre, strange story. The kind of thing that you just can't feel like you can make up. It definitely confirmed what I already knew, and that is that I am an absolute landlubber. Just reading about what these guys had to do and their lives and the things that they would brave, basically making like these makeshift rafts and going on these terrible ocean currents to try and go through. It's just insane. I couldn't do it. I remember the first time I took a cruise. We just went from like New England up to Canada, so it wasn't that long. But we're out in the middle of the, not in the middle of the ocean, but we're at a point where everywhere you look, all you see is ocean. And as a landlubber like me, that was my first experience of that. And I just remember how eerie the whole thing felt. It felt so sort of unnatural that I should be there to witness it. I definitely felt like I was in an alien world. And that's just a little taste, and that was my reaction. I could never do what these guys did. But Grann does a pretty good job of kind of laying out our characters and putting the different conflicts and strains of action together in a really satisfying and engaging way. There's actually, I thought there was going to be more images. There really isn't all that much. I mean, we have some maps there when you first open it, and I think there was maybe like a couple. Yeah, we got a couple things like portraits in the middle, but I was just surprised that we didn't get more images throughout here. But still, I mean, he paints a lot of images with his writing, so I'm totally satisfied. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would certainly highly recommend it. This was a real winner. And another thing that I read. This is actually a reread. So September is also like Sumerian September. I think that's what Michael K. Vaughan calls it. It's essentially a month of reading about Conan. I think last year he was reading the original Conan stories from Robert E. Howard, and this year he was reading a bunch of the kind of pastiche fiction, and that kind of includes this sort of thing. I decided graphic novels. So I had read these when they first came out, when Dark Horse Comics in the early 2000s, and I love these things. I thought they were just terrific. And the artwork, the action, the writing, I just thought that it really captured the kind of Hyborian age really, really well. And I actually have a hardcover edition of this signed by, I think Cary Nord signed it or something. I have this and also the second volume in hardcover. This one I actually found at a used book sale for like $1. So I grabbed it and I'm like, oh, this is a fun find for me. And I decided for September then I would do a reread and read this copy. And I'll be able to kind of pass this on to my son as well. So what we have here is the opening is a time way after Conan. And they basically find what might be a tomb of his. And this prince wants to know about him, wants to find out more and more. And he's basically asking that guy there with the green eyes to tell him about Conan. And that guy's reluctant to do it. But that's kind of the lead-in into the life of Conan. So then we go into Conan when he is kind of like a young man. When he's first leaving the Sumerian hills. And he's basically amongst sort of like Viking-esque people. And he gets caught inside a conflict with them, but he starts liking them. He starts finding out who these people are. All the while, he wants to go to this semi-legendary place, Hyperborea, where he's heard from his relatives that it's forever spring there, and feathers float down from the sky, and it seems to be this major paradise behind these terrible Arctic winds. And he finds out that that's at least partly true, but the Hyperboreans are pretty messed up individuals who basically enslave society. And the first half of the book, where it deals with things like that fighting between these clans, and at one point he finds the Frost Giant's daughter, and he's being led to her brothers to beat him up. That stuff was fine. It was fun. It was kind of choppy, but I think it really starts to hit his stride when he gets to Hyperborea and he starts finding out what it's really like there. And I thought that writing actually ended up being a lot more smooth. The artwork was excellent, and it just really moves very fast and engaging. So yeah, if you are a Conan fan and you've never read these, I definitely recommend this. I think this is a really good version of Conan. Glad I reread it. So, with that, yes, here are two books that I read in September of 2024. So we've got David Grann's The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder, which I highly recommend. Thought this was excellent. And if you're a Conan fan, I'd also really recommend this, Conan, the Frost Giant's Daughter, and Other Stories by Busiek and Cary Nord, which just has some terrific artwork and some very fun writing. So if you've read any of these, love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thank you, BookTube.